Hello, and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. I'm Shauna, and my Becca. And again, we have our fabulous ladies from Canada joining us. We have Jolene, who runs the Bookworm Adventure Girl website, YouTube, Instagram, blog, all things Bookworm Adventure Girl. And we have Larissa, the plant mom and the book mom on Instagram. We have Tara, who is our knitter and on Instagram. And then we have Sarah, who has her own needlepoint YouTube channel and participates very largely in the Bookstagram world of being able to say, yay, let's celebrate reading. So Rebecca and I are pretty happy to show off our really cool sweatshirt and hat tonight because we rebranded this year and we have a cool new logo, and these are one of a kind items that only Rebecca and I own. So anywho, you're here for the recap of Canada Reads, not about Canada Reads American Style. So today was a big day, lots of passion. Since the books get less, you can delve deeper into the meanings behind what's actually going on for what book is going to transport you when you are participating in this competition. So, after 3 days of competition, how well has each defender represented their book? And tonight we're going to start with Jolene.
Wow. I have been very happy with how all of the defenders have been defending their books. I think it's one of the years where I'm like, wow, they're all thinking about it. They're all listening to each other, pretty intently, and they have good arguments back. And so there's been some good conversation for sure. I don't know if I'm supposed to choose one that I think is doing the best, but today I did think that, and not just today, I think throughout the whole debate, Paul did a fantastic job at defending Hench. I really did think that it had a good chance of going further because of the way he defended his book so well. Also, I just want to give him a hug. He's just like this mushy bear, and he's emotional in a beautiful way, and but he and definitely passion for the book. It's hard to say. I mean, I think Scott did a great job, but it's hard when they've been voted off earlier and you don't hear them argue for their book and debate it as much. But I think he did a great job. Today, I was also very impressed with, is it Devry? I don't know if I'm saying the name correct, Devry. I think today was the best day for her and the way she debated her book. And I'm happy to see that Johnny Appleseed has gone another day. Roger is definitely a little bit more personal, a bit off the cuff, but passionate about the book. And he's had some good arguments back. And so again, and that's somebody else who's really, just wanting their book to do well. And he had some good points too. And then I know I'm missing somebody, Midnight Bargain. Again, it was voted off earlier, so it's, didn't have as much time, but I thought that they were all really, really well done. So yeah, if I had to choose, I think the top the top two people that are still in have done a fantastic job. So.
Awesome. And how about you, Tara?
Oh my gosh, I'm almost exactly like Jolene. I think Paul has been strong right from the beginning. I loved, again, his outfit today. The hat, the CBC shirt was awesome. Roger is passionate, like he's been passionate since you guys did the interview with him. His passion came through and it continues to come through. And Devry was her strongest day was today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And she had an interesting day in regards to how Johnny Appleseed was being brought up in the conversation. So, Sarah, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm super impressed with everyone's debate skills this year. Um, I think everyone has a completely different style, which is really fun to watch. No one is going about it the same way. Um, my favorite today was Roger, which it surprised me because up until today, I thought, I don't like that style that he's going with, but today I really loved it. I thought his just the way he chose to talk about things and relate it to himself and his own story, I thought was a really good choice for today and for the arguments that were presented. I think it served him really well, obviously. I'm not sure. Uh, the cynical part of me is saying that he made a wise choice, but to get personal. But at the same, and that's fine, and it worked. But at the same time, like if it was like completely genuine that he was really coming from that place, I think that was really great too. If that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm getting across what I mean. I think the choice to get really personal and to share so much about yourself um can be, you know, can be a tactic to use in debate. I'm not saying he did that, but you know, it works. And it worked well today. Um I really loved how he spoke about food and healing, and that kind of it's rare for a debater to kind of change my mind on things. And I found that the way he talked about the strengths of this book being um, to gather around food and use that as a device to start healing and start conversation and develop sense of community. I just thought, wow, that is so true, and it's so relatable to absolutely everyone in the country. Everyone can relate to that one thing. Um, so I thought it was really, really genius for him to pull that out today and to use that. I also liked how he tied in the concept of, was it Ubuntu? I forget exactly what it was. Ubuntu? Yeah. I didn't know much about that, and I love that I learned something. And I thought that was a really good move from Roger. So I was just super impressed with him today, and I'm really coming around to his passionate, you know, over the top showmanship style. It's it's winning me over.
Oh man, did that win you over, Larissa?
So my answer is actually really similar. Yeah. So I think that all of the panelists have done a really great job this year so far. Like, they've all really been passionate about their books and promoted their books really well. I've disagreed with some of the things they've said about each other's books. But in terms of defending their own books, I think everyone's done a really great job. I think he's done the best job. I wasn't shocked to see the book go today, though I did kind of expect it to go to the final two because he's doing such a good job. But I really loved basically what Sarah said about the I am because we are. I thought that was a really true statement that I hadn't thought about for his book, because that really was what it was. It was their whole story altogether, and it was affected by that one traumatic experience and how it affected all of them. They all came back together at the end. But I also really thought his argument about Taye's, like, she didn't reach out to her sister and she didn't send the letters, but she's like using food as love. And that is so true for so many people. When people come to your home, at least in the Maritimes, you offer to feed them and give them tea. And like, that is part of our culture here in the Maritimes. And I think that that's probably true of most places and most peoples.
We don't even always offer. We just like shove it in front of them.
We're like, oh, people are here, I guess we're making snacks. Like, that's just what we do. And I think that that's true of most cultures too. And it certainly seemed to be the case here. And so she showed her love through food. And that was really, like, she makes the cake at the beginning because her sister's coming home. But I also think, and Roger didn't actually bring this up, but I think he may have, had he been given more time, But Scott's argument about like that Taye didn't try to mend things with her sister kind of like glossed over the fact that Taye was also hurt. She was hurt that her sister, like she was also a kid when things happened, and her sister left and kind of went off on her own and left her twin behind. And so the way that she would have, in my mind, the way she communicated it made sense. Like she communicated it through food and caring, which is the point that Roger made. And I thought that was a really effective argument, because I think that that is exactly how the book was intended to be taken. Yeah, so that's my answer. I think Paul did the best job so far, but today, in particular, I was really happy with the way Roger defended his book.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I am going to turn this over to Rebecca to answer the question.
Oh, you're not going? Well, I just
that was
want
my segue.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because when they started out right off the bat saying that she wrote those letters and, they were, why did she write the letters and they weren't intended for anyone? And I don't know if anyone's ever been in therapy. They tell you write those letters when you're hurting and you never send them. And she didn't want to send them. And her girlfriend at the time did send them. So Scott was like, well, you write it and you put it out there. No, that's not what therapy tells you to do. But anyway, so I thought that was kind of, I just sort of laughed about that to myself. But no, I agree with what everybody's saying. The thing about Roger, I just want to comment on what Sarah said. I didn't get a sense that it was a strategy that he used to talk personally about himself, because if you watch him at the beginning of the episode, he's very like himself, right? And after he made that comment, he looked very subdued. And I said to a couple of people, I wonder if he regrets now being so personal and so emotional and vulnerable in that moment. You know what I mean? Within his family unit, if that was something, it struck me that he looked different from the beginning and what he looked like at the end. So that was kind of interesting. But here's the person I most want to have coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I want to go out with this woman so bad. I want to go out with Rosie. Again, I don't know her. I don't follow Olympic sports, but I wished I could have her defend a book that I am passionate about, right? Because I thought she was I just loved her style of how she, when she wrote out what she was going to say, I thought what she said was beautifully said. I thought the way she handled her discussion in the moment where it wasn't written down, I thought it was just eloquent and articulate and calm, and just like I feel like she came well prepared. She knew her book inside and out, and no matter what you could say to her, she was going to have a really well thought out argument in response. Again, I didn't read the book. It's not a book that I just wish she had been able to defend something that I could get really behind, and then have her make almost like a better argument in a case, or at least stay on long enough to continue to make her case. Because that's the thing, like with Scott and with Rosie, they got voted off. So you only hear them in response to, what do you think about this book? Well, that's not their book. That they're not necessarily going to be as passionate about the books that are their competition in that sense. But in general, I agree. Paul killed it. Roger, Devery, I thought did a really great job today. I don't feel I think at least one time she has said, oh, I was going to say that. And even Scott said it at one time. And I was kind of laughing to myself, thinking like, man, write that stuff down. Because if those are the points you really wanted to make, write that down, put a little star next to it. That's what I do. And then make sure those are the things you get out, because you get voted off the first day. You never got a chance to make that really critical point that you want to make. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, and I can totally agree with that in regards to, I haven't been happy with a few of the answers in regards, like when they start off with, I love all of the books, and then I like this and this and this and this, and then you get into the but statements, and it's like you just wasted 30 seconds or a minute of your time where you could really have like hit home the point that you're trying to make your book stand out.
Yeah, good point.
So but that brings up, over the years, we can look back at all of the different Canada Reads titles, and whether it be from the short list or the long list, which Canadian book and author has shaped your worldview? So for me, I had to say it was Tima Curdy's The Boy on the Beach. A couple of years ago, one of the themes that Canada Reads had was a call to, or one of the questions during Canada Reads was, does this book have a call to action? And when Rebecca and I were doing our podcast, that was the question I made sure to ask in every single podcast that year, because it was so important for me to get that out of the book series. Tima Curdy's book, The Boy on the Beach, is about refugees. And that was the very first book that I ever felt the need to do something outside of read the book. So I actually was able to help contribute to a relief fund for that. And I also was helping out with other refugee type
Philanthropic.
thank you,
Yeah.
necessity things that they would need, like being able to donate diapers and shampoo and have other people help collect for that. So that's the book that I'm going to say that really changed my worldview through Canada Reads. Now let's see how Larissa feels about that.
Sure. So this is actually only my second year doing the Canada Reads, reading all the books, watching all of the sessions, chatting with you guys. Last year was my first year. But I read a lot of Canadian literature anyway. So I kind of have a dual answer. First of all, From the Ashes last year really gave me a look inside the life of someone experiencing addiction and homelessness, like one that I hadn't had before. And I think that did help me help shape my worldview. His experience was a learning for me, even though I do have people in my life who struggle with addiction and things like that. But the one that probably has affected me the most or shaped my worldview the most is, and this, I read it long time ago because it was on Canada Reads a long time ago, but it is my favorite book. It's The Birth House. So that's like a 2011, I believe it was on Canada Reads. But due to her book, I read it before I became a mother. And it really shaped the way I looked at birth and motherhood, and all of those things before it was even in my realm of possibility. And because of that, I believe I went into pregnancy, birth, and early motherhood with completely different ideas than I may have otherwise. And it has really benefited me and served me really well.
Wow, that's beautiful. Tara, do you have a book?
I meant to go back and look, and so anyways, I'm going to choose one of my favorite authors. I think was on several years ago. I don't know when it was. So it's David Adams Richards. I'm not sure if he even won. It was for Mercy Among the Children. I love his books, and the reason why that book in particular, but all of his books feature characters that if I were to meet them in real life, I would stay away from, but he shows a side of them and a motivation to their actions that I did not see prior to reading his books. So I don't know what year he was in Canada Reads, but I know he was in there. So I'm throwing him out. Throw him out there.
It looks like 2009.
Okay. And I think I had young babies and kids, and I was not aware of what else was going on, but I know he was there.
I could be wrong, so I'll keep looking for that as we move on to Sarah.
We need to put these together as like a book list to share on Instagram, because I don't want to forget what these are. Mine is going to be a little cliche, and I almost picked The Birth House, but I knew that's Larissa's love, so I went another way, and I feel like it's cliche only because it is such a Canadian classic. But it was in the inaugural Canada Reads in 2002, and it's Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. So in Margaret Atwood's masterclass for writing, she says that nothing she has written hasn't happened before. And that really blew my mind because I mean she does write predominantly fiction, but as she says, everything has happened before. And so when I read The Handmaid's Tale, I was so struck with the fact that these things, as outrageous as they seem, individually, they have happened before and could happen again. So, that has stuck with me since then in a way to think that we have to be really careful because the things that we have and take for granted won't necessarily always be the way they are. And it can very easily slip away. Some think the way life is now is fairly recent and it's not, deeply ingrained in our history, and it could disappear just as quickly. And so we do have to be careful and make wise choices and make smart decisions for the people who can't always be in a position to be able to make those decisions for themselves. And so that book has really shaped the way I look at things, because I've always been a person that stands up for people when nobody else does, or I've always been a person that's even a little radical in the way like I think about things and social justice and whatnot. Like I'm very vocal about it. But this book kind of pushed me over the edge a little bit to say like, no, we have to stand up for those things that we're passionate about and we hold really dear, our way of life, because like it can get away from us and it can go to an extent that is unrecognizable if we're not careful and if we take too many things for granted.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn. And so it is 2009, and it was championed by Sarah Slean,
Ah,
and it made it to day 3.
okay.
So
nice.
CBC does a great job of recording all of their previous competitions. So do
should
check
go
it
back
out
and
at
look.
cbcbooks.ca. Jolene.
I think, like most of you, all of you, I think we do read a lot of Canadian literature, and it's hard because I mean, a lot of books make me think differently. But I think if I was going to choose one of the winners, that's how I had to narrow it down. I'm going to choose Lawrence Hill's The Illegal. And he's the only author, I think he's the only author who has won twice. And I do like I love the Book of Negroes as well. But The Illegal made me think differently about people who don't have a place, who don't belong because of paperwork or because of rules that are just, in some ways don't make sense, right? Like the person is in front of you, but they don't exist, or whatever that can be. And so that story kind of made me look at the whole refugee system, what those processes look like for families, and then reading The Boat People, reading Holmes, reading like other Canadian literature like that. It doesn't have to be Canadian literature, Refugees Anywhere. I just think that it's really made me think differently about that. And then, of course, we've had, in the last couple of years with, people are not going to let them in, and these families are living in, places that, or they're being separated for whatever reason, or like, it's just like, how are we treating people this way in 2020s? Like, how are we doing these kind of things to people? And it's just made me think differently. And so every time that I hear stories like that, and going back to your choice, Shauna, about the boy on the beach, that story was brought up on TV the other day, and the picture came up, and my mom, I think, saw the picture for the first time, or maybe like hadn't seen it in a while and had kind of forgotten the story. I don't know. And her reaction to that, right, was probably what most people's reaction is, like, oh my goodness, there's this little boy, and that's a story, that's a refugee story of how we treat people. And it's just really made me aware of the injustices in the world, and that, even here in Canada, like knowing what that process is like, and the way people have been treated or turned away. And in a lot of cases, they're being turned away. If they go back to their homeland, they will be killed. This is not I decided to leave my home and I'm coming to, it's been a struggle to get here. And so there's that whole piece. And then there's the whole piece that even when they do get here, they either have to be an alien because, and live kind of underground, or there's that whole story. So that's really made me think very differently about what that looks like and what people have done to sacrifice for their family and to come to a different country.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and in this country, we let them be born here, and then we deport them to a country they never lived in.
Yeah.
That's even.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all criminal, but yeah, we even do that here. So, so it's my turn.
Yes. And
Okay,
and
I have
here in
two.
the United States, as Rebecca and I
Oh,
are
yeah,
from
we're US.
Michigan in the US, and the rest of our participants or ladies that are joining us are from Canada.
Yeah, thank you. Forgot to mention that. Okay, I have two books and I cannot decide between the two. And the whole time you guys are talking and making your points about different things, I was like, oh yeah. So
You're only going to do one book.
I know, shut up. I'm completely torn. So I'm going to go with one. I'm going to go with one that I haven't talked about before.
It's your show. Do too.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so no, Shauna mentioned Boy on the Beach, which I'd kind of forgotten because I forgot to kind of look at the full list and everything of the long list titles too. But yeah, I also, as a result, I also donated money on behalf of that because it went directly to like diapers and things, and that felt so great to make a small gesture of support in that way. But so the one I'm going to talk about is the Chimps of Fauna Sanctuary, because that was a book. What's that? What?
I said, because she brings it up every day.
No, I don't. Anyway, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. It's because I mentioned it yesterday, how books when animals are abused, I can't read those books. So when Shauna and I did this challenge where we were going to read last year or year, whatever it was, read all the books on the long list. So we made it through all of them. Well, I did. And I got to the end and it was Chimps of Fauna Sanctuary, which was written for a political reason, really. It was written to get people to write to their Congress people and to make sure that all the chimps that had been in research facilities could be released and could go to sanctuaries around the world, actually, well, North America. So anyway, I read it, and each chapter would be about some of the chimps were named, you got to know who the chimps were. It would be about the chimps, about their lives, what their lives have been like, which was traumatic. It was horrible. I cried through every freaking chapter. I would cry and cry and cry. I had to set it aside. And then they would talk about their life in the sanctuary, which was uplifting. Well, I knew, we have always, since I was a kid, talked about animal experimentation and, makeup that was used. I used it on animal testing and all that stuff. And honestly, I wasn't a fan of it, but I never really, really understood the trauma that occurred, right? Related to these animals, and these animals that are 98% us, right? So anyway, I love that sanctuary. It's in Montreal or it's in Quebec, southeast of Montreal. And I regularly send things. They have a wish list and I buy things for the chimps. It makes me really happy because you get to buy cool things like hairbrushes and beads and blocks. And I just sent them a bunch of magazines because they literally like to look at the magazines, cooking magazines and gardening magazines. And it makes me so happy that as much as we tortured those beautiful creatures, they now get to live life better. So that changed my perspective in the sense that I was able to get through something that I normally would never, ever, ever read. And it was hard, but I did it. And now I get to celebrate it all the time with those beautiful chimps. Yay, Binky. So, okay.
I love that so much.
You can follow them on social media. And I'm telling you, to see those chimps in their element and eating lettuce and they play tickle games. I mean, just to see their and I say humanity or their whatever it is, right? But they are so much like us, and it's beautiful to see them living the way they should be. So anyway, that's my answer.
Yeah, I had to say like that question and that whole thing of Canada Reads for like the aspect of it being so important, because if you can read a book and that book is asking you to do something based on, your decision of how you want to handle it, aren't you going to take the step to do it or not, kind of deal? So now it's time for shout outs of today's program. And I want to shout out Rosie for calling all writers and authors gems and geniuses in the After program. That was just a beautiful quote and sentence that she came up with. And Allie was even like, thank you for saying that. So I just wanted to bring it up again to be like, we appreciate authors so much. And, Rebecca and I, as librarians, we wouldn't have jobs if there weren't authors out there. So, Tara, do you have a shout out for today?
I do. Mine is to Roger's, no, not Roger's, sorry, Paul's little moment of triumph in the after show when they were talking about pivotal books that they had read when they were children. And Roger mentioned Black Panther, which was a comic book, and then Paul's face just lit up that it was a comic book. So I'm like, that's my little moment. I loved that for him.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious. Like I bursted out laughing when that happened, and I was like, he just got you. Oh, Sarah, what's your shout out today?
I wanted to shout out Paul because my heart went out to him so strongly today. I felt like he looked sad, or he looked like the weight of the world was on him through the entire show. I mean, he was fully engaged and focused, but he just looked different than he did yesterday. And I just think he's obviously going through a lot with, Kim's Convenience being canceled or ended, or, I'm not sure yet what the right term for what happened is, because I don't really know what happened, but yeah, he's obviously really emotional, and I've seen some of his co-stars posting things on Instagram that were really emotional. So everyone's, shook from it. But I wanted to shout him out because he did so well, and I can't even imagine sitting there and being so engaged and, working so hard the way he did, with having so much going on in the background for him. So I just think he is phenomenal, and I can't believe how talented he is, speaking so eloquently of books, and especially like a genre book, like a superhero book. There's a lot of people that were, not so enthused about it because, it's specific taste, but he's doing such a good job at championing it and making it, so accessible for everyone. And I'm such a new big fan.
Oh yeah. It was when Rebecca and I were reading through the bios of the content or the defenders, one of the things that stuck out in Paul's was the fact that he doesn't read as much, and he was really looking for something to get him back into reading. So I had to say that I've been super impressed with how he is handling the whole thing in regards to like knowing that piece about he doesn't typically read. So I'm wondering how much more of a reader he's going to become. So Jolene, what's your shout out today?
I think my shout out, I like the shout out so far, so I don't want to repeat anything. So maybe I will shout out Rebecca and Shauna. And yeah, and I think, as we've gotten to know you in the last couple of years, and doing this last year was a lot of fun. It's been great doing it this year. And just your passion for literature, your librarians, your passion for authors and books, and wanting to, we've talked about this a little bit ourselves, celebrating reading and celebrating books. Like I try to do that every day. I'm not a librarian. I try to do that every day. And whether I'm doing that myself and just enjoying enjoying reading a book or whether I'm talking about books with my friends, they're like, here comes Jolene, she's going to talk about a book, like, so they've kind of got used to it. But so I want to shout out to you guys because you have been so supportive of Canadian literature and reading. And like, I've read several Canadian authors I didn't even know existed because of you guys. And I know that there are people watching you. Well, I'm hoping you have viewers right now, but I know that people have been watching, your channel and listening to your podcast, and that you're bringing Canadian literature to so many different people. So I just want to shout you guys out, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing in Yay Books.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I have to say, talk about somebody who is a prolific reader and speaker of all things reading, because I can't keep up with the amount of YouTube videos that you put out. And I keep telling Shauna, I had to go back and I am going to watch them, but I watch like one here every once in a while. I grab one. But you're impressive, Jolene, because I said when I met you, your reviews are my style of review that I like to hear. I don't do those kind, but I like to hear them because you always just make the most amazing points, and it's nice and concise, and you don't give away too much, but you give enough of it so that it draws people in. And I have to say, my reading list is freaking huge because of you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say.
Okay, I just want my quick shout out is.
Oh, I thought that was your shout out.
No, that's
No,
not
no, shout out.
I was just thanking Jolene.
Yes,
No, my real shout out, it was because I said something in the chat room on YouTube today where I just said that the questions, I just have loved the questions this year. I just felt like they felt more analytic, and I said that, and then somebody then said, who writes the questions in the chat box? And then CBC came back and said, because someone said, does Allie write the questions? And then CBC responded and said, Allie, as well as others in the group, at CBC. So I just want to give a shout out to CBC this year, because I just felt like, I don't know if the questions were of a different caliber this year. They seemed more focused in some way. I just thought they did a phenomenal job, which generated the great discussions that we've had this year, I think. So just a huge shout out to CBC Books for great questions this year.
Yeah, because not only did they have great questions, but they also made all of the books available for accessibility. So if you are blind, deaf, or have trouble reading, they have provided copies of the books in those Lextiles for you to be able to participate with Canada Reads. And I hope they continue to do that going forward. And not only did that, they also provided downloadable content for book clubs, for social media sharing. We live in such a internet-based world. It was very nice of them to be able to provide that type of content, especially in COVID times. So I think they really rocked it this year, and great job, CBC Productions. So, right? So we didn't talk about what book was eliminated today, and this is your spoiler warning. I'm going to tell you what it is. So if you haven't watched the competition, go and watch the competition. But I'm going to tell you anyway. So the book that was eliminated today was Hench by Natalie, my good friend Natalie. I can't remember her last name.
Zena Walshots.
Okay, good. Defended by Paul. So tomorrow is going to be the battle of the food versus the cyber sex drug car ride, I guess is what I'm going to go with.
What? I have no idea what you're saying. No, he was going home to the funeral or to the wake, but he wasn't about a car ride. Is that what you're saying? Is that what he said, car ride?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I don't think it was a car ride, but anyway.
Yeah, he had to take a car ride to the reservation.
Well, that's true, he did, but it wasn't about like
anyway. Sentences in the book.
Okay, it's Johnny Appleseed and it's butter honey pig bread.
Well, I was trying to give everybody like a sense of like they can look it up on their own or something.
If Johnny Appleseed wins, I think it's the first time an Indigenous author would have won Canada Reads, and for that to be a two-spirit, Indigiqueer author is pretty phenomenal. So it's going to be really exciting tomorrow. I think it's going to be a great matchup.
Record breaking.
So does everybody want to say who they think is going to win? Just to, because we keep saying at the end who's going to get voted off next. Who's going to win? Anybody?
I think it's going to be Johnny Appleseed.
I do too.
Jolene?
Yeah, the top two are my two most enjoyable. So I really hope it's Johnny Appleseed. I think that it should be the one because it's the one Canadians should read. Yeah.
Well, I have to laugh because Lucy Thistle, I'm going next. Lucy Thistle asked me right after the short list was announced, she said, who do you think will win? And I didn't know anything about the books other than the little bit that I read about each one of them. And I said, the short list, and I said, Johnny Appleseed. So I have it proof on my phone, dated and date stamped in time, that I said Johnny Appleseed, even though I thought Hench was going to win, but whatever.
You've got the receipt.
I have the receipt. I'm bringing the receipt tomorrow.
Well, if you're still following along with us, then you'll know that we have already picked the winner for Canada Reads, and you might not even have to watch tomorrow because we just know it's going to be Johnny Appleseed. I'm going to say it's Johnny Appleseed because it is financially accessible to everybody. It's only 200 some odd pages, and you're definitely going to learn something. So with that, we're going to say good night to everybody. And we'll see you again tomorrow night with Ali Hassan, who's going to join us at 7:30 to recap the last day of Canada Reads 2020.